Hello, YouTube. It's Jonathan at the Piano Lesson, back for another edition of the Piano Lesson, which I just said. Hey, how about some bass lines? Spring's coming, and we going to start getting out there playing gigs. And a lot of you guys, a lot of you keyboard players, are going to want to be able to do not only solo gigs, but also, some duos, trios, maybe. You're not going to have a bass player on the gig. And I'd like to talk about how to formulate bass lines. And whenever I'm teaching something, I'm not just teaching a lesson. I'm not just teaching you like how to do a bass line. I'm teaching you how to take a musical problem and break it down. Okay, it just so happens we're working on a bass line. But when you learn something, you want to be able to break it down in its component parts and look at the various parameters and set priorities as to what's most important and what's least important. And then also take what you've learned and parlay it into something else. So if you know bass lines, okay, bass lines are really melodies, and you can take that knowledge and you're not limited to just playing it in the left hand. You could play it in the right hand. You can make them into melodies, and you can use that as an aid to learning to improvise, okay? So here we go, okay? So as far as bass lines go, really, not just making bass lines, but what's the most important thing in music? In my estimation, it's keeping a beat, keeping a steady beat, okay? No matter what, all right? Even if you have to just play one note. So keeping that beat, and that's typically why bass players and drummers often kind of synchronize together, right? And particularly with the bass drum, you often hear that now, maybe not in jazz per se, but still kind of synchronizing. So we'll kind of demonstrate on our blues pattern, our 1-4-5 pattern, and how would you build a bass line? Making sure you're starting with a metronome, okay, and you can keep a steady beat. That looks easier than it really is, because you got to remember where you are in the music. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's your 12 bars. I just started playing, and I just kind of knew immediately what bar I was on. I didn't even count actually, but I just been doing it so long that I just kind of know where I am in the music. Now, most important thing bass players are supposed to do after that is to outline the harmony. Root being the most important, okay? And then what's the next most important note in a chord? Probably a third. Why? Because that's going to tell you whether it's major or minor, right? And then also the seventh is the next most important. Why is that? Well, because the seventh is very distinctive, right? And then maybe the fifth. Now the fifth, right? This is a bit of a contradiction here, because on one hand, you hear bass players playing roots and fifths all the time, all right? But the fifth is kind of superfluous, because the fifth is an overtone, and you're going to kind of hear it anyway, and it doesn't really tell us very much, doesn't give us a lot of information about the chord. Now, I'm just going to kind of set that aside and qualify it, because when we're playing Latin music, you do hear the fifth a lot more often, and it's the rhythmic component of the bass line more so than the harmonic component that you're hearing. But let's talk about just kind of playing a swing, jazz, even rock and roll, right? But playing, so you're playing an F chord, F, A, C, and typically it's not even just F, A, C, right? It's F, A, C, E flat. So we're doing, root, third, seventh, fifth, root, third, seventh, fifth, in order of priority. I think that's a much better way to practice the bass line than just to go root, third, fifth, seventh, root, third, fifth, seventh. I mean, that's fine too. And actually, that might be a little bit more musical in some respects, but that's provided that we're using a passing tone, using the sixth. F, A, C, D, E flat, D, C, A. And that's using octaves. That's our kind of boogie woogie bass line, right? You can even practice two hands. if you want like that. Also, I'm not going to get too much into playing those octaves today. There's a little more to it than it looks, but phrasing, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, or you could connect also 4, 5, 4, 4, 5, using 5, 4 to play bass lines to connect the bass. Right now we're just going to do single lines. Root, third, fifth, seventh, root, third, excuse me, I said it backwards, root, third, seventh, fifth, root, third, seventh, fifth. Now I'm playing too high on the piano right now. Bass, the bass is down, starts here on the piano. That's the low E string on the bass, A, D, G, right? It's really right around there. Root, third, seventh, fifth, root, third, seventh, fifth, root, third, seventh, fifth, root. Now what was that? That's chromatic, moving up, third, seventh, fifth, root, third, seventh, fifth, F, A, E flat, C, F, A. Now, a bass line like that is actually kind of versatile because you could use it in jazz, and you could use it in blues, and you could use it in rock and roll, actually. But most important is keeping that root movement, right, and knowing where you are in the tune in that 12 bars. So 4 plus 4 plus 4. Now, to add color, the word color in music means dissonance, okay, something that's not a chord note and may not even be a scale note. But the most colorful notes and the ones that we most associate with the cool sounding jazz lines are the chromatic notes. So half step above or half step below. And what I would do is I would organize your practicing in terms of practicing those chromaticisms, but do them methodically and systematically. So start at first just by doing the chromatic note above. So for instance, you're going to do F, F, F. Now that's 3 counts. On the fourth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? On the fourth count, you can do the chromatic note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm just doing octaves here, right? And just repeating. Again, just to, you know, if you're just starting out, that's kind of the way to do it. If you're more advanced, okay, fine, then you can do something else. The next thing is to do the note below, just below the B flat, just below the F, just below, right? Now you can start to mix them up, above, below, above, below. I want you to notice that if you do it that way, you're going to alternate in terms of the chord, right? At first, you will approach the F chord, let's say from above, and then the next time you get around to the F chord, you're going to be approaching it from below if you just kind of alternate just that way. Now, you can start also by just doing root third. I mean, most bass players are going to start by probably doing triads, all right? They're going to go F, A, C, A, B flat, D, F, A. But even that can be a little bit too much in the beginning. So F, A, B flat, D, B flat, D, F, A, F. Just, again, isolating one component of the bass line, then working on the fifth. Root, fifth, fifth, root, fifth, root, fifth, root, fifth. Just doing that. seventh, root seventh, root seventh, root seventh, root seventh, F, E flat, F, E flat, just that one element. And then doing two elements, okay? So, you know, doing the F, A, C, A, B flat, D, F, that's the triad. Right? Once you're okay with that, then dial it back a bit, add a chromatic component in. So let's just say we're going to do root, third, root, chromatic, root, third, root, chromatic, root, third, root, chromatic, root, third, root, half step above, root, third, root, half step above, root, half step above, right? Same idea, root, fifth, root, half step above, fifth, root, half step above, root, seventh, root, half step above, root, seventh, half step above, and then sneak up on the bass line. If you try to learn a pattern, okay, even though it seems logical and reasonable to do, it's harder than it looks, and it's just a lot of things to juggle. And if you just take one or two little elements, you take elements that are diatonic and elements that are chromatic. Now, or if they're not outright chromatic, like half steps, at least they're going to be passing tones or neighbor tones. So what's a passing tone and a neighbor tone? Well, it's a note of the scale, all right? What scale am I playing there? If it's a dominant 7 chord, F7, it's a Mixolydian scale. That's the scale you're going to be playing, okay? It's a flatted 7th, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, F. That's the Mixolydian scale, and you need to know that, okay? But if I'm the notes that are not the chord notes, the notes that are the passing tones or the neighbor tones, are the notes that lead you to or get you to the next chord tone. So the passing tone is a note that goes from a chord tone to another chord tone. So in between F and A, in between that skip, the G is the passing tone. That's the passing tone. Or the neighbor tone, upper neighbor, lower neighbor. That's a stepwise motion. Now, in that instance, it was chromatic, but it doesn't have the same impact as the chromatic passing tone does, because the chromatic passing tone is typically not just moving by step. So F, A, C, B, D, B flat, D, F. That chromatic note adds a lot of color to the chord. Root, third, 7th, chromatic. Root, third, 7th, chromatic. Root, third, 7th. That sound. And then, of course, when you add the chords, third, 7th, right? That's our basic sound. Now, I told you could take that knowledge, right, and you could kind of use it in the right hand as an improvisation. So, you know, you're playing. Now, just those notes by themselves aren't a whole lot, but you can ornament them. Or what was I doing there? Well, I was using chromatic notes underneath the A, underneath the E flat, underneath the C, right? That is the kind of the essence of improvising. It's not a full-blown improvisation. And also using that root movement and tracking a chord on top of that. Sometimes the chord is diatonic, sometimes the chord is chromatic, sometimes the chord is just a basic triad, all right? But in this instance, we're using our jazz voicings, just to kind of review a bit. When I see, and I'm going to put this on the board for you so it'll be a little bit easier. When I see a chord like F7, if I'm playing just rock and roll, the classical music or whatever, that's your F7, okay? But when I'm playing jazz, I really don't do that. I really play, that's E flat, G, A, and D, okay? That's F13 actually, E flat, G, A, D, okay? As opposed to F, A, C, E flat, right? That's a root position chord. That's F13. The root is going to be in the bass. That's going to be the F somewhere down there. But that sound, right? Now, I could, this voicing sounds just fine, it's okay, but the other alternative to that is to take these lower notes, right, bring them up an octave, and now we have the other voicing, A, D, E flat, what are we doing? A, D, E flat, G, okay? A, D, E flat, G. That's also F13. This is the 7th. The E flat's the 7th. The G is the 9th. The A is the 3rd. And the D is the 13. Okay? And those are the two voicings you really need to know. And depending on where you are in the process of those voicings, you're going to be switching back and forth. So here I'm playing the F13. I'm starting on the F chord. I have the 3rd as the lowest note. But when I switch to the 4 chord, when I switch to the B flat, now I have the other voicing. I have the voicing where I have the 7th in the thumb. That's the A flat in this case. And usually it's one of the two. That's the B flat. That's a parallel motion. So the 7th is in the 7th is in the thumb here. Right here, the 3rd is in the thumb. Those are critical voicings to learn. Now, if you're accompanying someone, right? Obviously, you're not going to be playing super high, probably. But if you're not accompanying someone, then you can add the triad on top. This is just a plain old triad, A, C, F. B flat, D, F. That's using this. Right, this. Those are all the sounds, those are all the sounds that you want to be able to access as quickly as possible when you're playing jazz. And I have videos on these. You'll see I have old videos on how to do. These are referred to as rootless voicings, and they're rootless. Why? Because I'm not using the root of the chord really. I mean, it's an F chord, right? But there's no F in my right hand. It's in the bass. Okay. Now, there is another rhythmic component to this. Of course, you want it to swing, but also if you're playing root, 3rd, 7th, 5th, da-dum, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Da-da. Here, how I'm kind of, and I'm doing something. It's called ghosting notes, where the word a ghost note is a note that you really don't quite hear. You really feel it more than you hear it, and I'm just touching the note. I didn't even play that, barely played that. You hear jazz organ players kind of ghost a lot of notes. And the way they do that is they do that with their feet. They don't even, they have pedals that a pedal keyboard that they play. But usually jazz organ players don't play every note explicitly with their feet. It's possible, and there's some people who do it remarkably well. But it still never sounds quite right. It just sounds kind of like a tuba. But what they do is they just sort of kind of slap their foot on the very superficially on the pedal, and you just have this thump, almost like a bass drum sound. And combined with the left hand pedal, see, even my thumb here, that I'm not playing the E flat explicitly. I just played that very lightly, and that's kind of the secret of getting your bass lines to feel good as well as sound good. If you play every single note explicitly, I mean, that's okay, but it's not really how it's done in real life. If you listen to guys playing real guys playing bass, yeah, the best players are very clear, absolutely, and really in tune and all that. But a lot of their notes are felt notes. A lot. What am I saying? A lot. But enough, right? I mean, let's pick a number. 5% of their notes, okay? You know, but there's a certain amount, and a lot of that happens pretty fast. You know, if they're I might even play two notes at the same time and lift up the top one. I played those two together, B flat and A flat, but I got my thumb off of the note, so it really just functions. See, it sounds different than if I just did that. Or if you know, right, that's explicitly playing the thumb. This is kind of halfway in between, short. See, I'm connecting the bottom notes and I'm not playing the top notes. This is stuff that you acquire over the years, just kind of using your ear and just sensing things musically, you know, but they can be practiced. But you see what we're doing from the very beginning, you know, even if you're more advanced, okay, and you're like, hey, I can play bass lines. Well, great. But taking this problem where you're setting your priorities musically. So because no matter how good you are, no matter how experienced you are, there are times when things start to fall apart a bit, you know, and you have to be able to kind of, regroup while you're playing. And so, again, if things start to fall apart, what do? You just make sure that beat's there, okay, and then you just try to find your spot, okay, and see where you are. And no matter, again, everybody kind of loses their place at one point or another. It's possible, you know, and Otherwise, you know, you want to practice a certain amount of humility in your practicing, and it does kind of come across. So I don't know. Let's just kind of goof around a bit and play a little bit. Tenths. That's fun. Walking tenths. That's a little low. You have to excuse my little grunts and groans. time. You know that chord, this chord here? That's a sharp 9 chord, root, 7th, F, A flat, and then the G sharp. It's not an A flat, it's a G sharp. It's that's our sharp 9 chord. So don't cut yourself on your sharp 9 chords. Be very careful. Well, wasn't that fun? I thought it was fun. Okay, so once again, pleasure to have metaphorically seen you today, and I hope that I'll hear from you, and you can ask whatever questions you like, because nobody's here and nobody's watching this, so you know it's just us. Okay, this is Jonathan at the piano lesson, and spring is here, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, adios.